I call this meeting of the Magnolia Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Joe's going to lead our invocation and our pledges, but before we do that, if you notice, you don't see any students in the audience tonight. And a decision was made based on Montgomery County reaching out to Dr. Stevens about the possible bad weather, funnel clouds, hail. So in the abundance of caution for our students, the decision was made that we would not ask them to come to the board meeting and consequently ask their parents to get out in this weather. So I think that's what I understood. Absolutely. So with that, Joe Duncan is going to lead us in the invocation as well as the pledges.
It's been a long-standing tradition in Magnolia to say a prayer before our meeting. If you'd like to join us, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for letting us gather here tonight. We thank you for this fellowship. We'd like to thank you for the tremendous blessings you give our community, the tremendous blessings you give our schools and our kids. We'd ask you to bless our schools, bless our kids, bless our teachers, bless our administrators. Lord, in the rough times that are right now, we ask you to bless all those folks in Ukraine. Help them to be safe. Deliver them from any form of evil. Deliver them from illness or sickness or oppression. We ask you to please shepherd them. Lord, in that same vein, we ask you to bless all of our military. Bless all of our first responders. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. So, consequently, if you have the agenda, we're going to jump all the way past the break and directly to, Dr. Stevens, do you have any superintendent report that you want to give?
Hold on.
Are we doing teacher? Okay.
We got teachers and one special recognition too. Just no student recognition.
All right. Let me get down through here. Teacher of the month, Dr. Garza. Caught me off too. I'm following my script.
Okay, well, good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce our Magnolia ISD Teacher of the Month for March 2022. This is Miss Amy Law from Magnolia Elementary School. She is a second grade reading teacher. Believe it or not, this is her 9th year teaching. I thought it was her first. And she is joined, and I will say, she is won the award for the biggest entourage. She brought quite the fam, so I'm going to go down the list here. We have boyfriend Steven, we have mom and dad, Kelly and Dave, we have sister Erin, grandma Rosemary, and Aunt Debbie and Uncle Mike. Nice crew here tonight. She is a graduate of Texas State University. She spent some time in Willis before she came to us. She's been with us, like I said, 3 years. And according to Don, does a fantastic job, not only in the classroom, but the main thing that she told me privately was that she relates well to some of the toughest kids they have on campus, and she does a great job with that. So we are so thankful that you are with us as well.
Thank you so much. I am so happy. Thank you, School Board, for inviting us. I want to let you know that she is an amazing teacher, and we're so happy to have her. She is our second grade Reading, Language Arts, and Social Studies teacher. She has been an integral part of MES for 3 years now. She is a natural-born leader. Her work habit represents our vision and mission, by providing students with the skills necessary to be successful. She has a growth mindset and can be flexible when needed. Walking into her class is always a great treat. I love going into her class. Everyone is always smiling, interacting, and contributing to the lesson presented. She has a heart for her students, who in turn have a heart for each other. They are all willing to work together to help each other in academics as well as on the playground. Caitlin Murphy, our academic coordinator, said that she is so proud of the growth that she's shown this year in PLC. She went from being a little shy to jumping right in and working with her team to create lessons that are differentiated to the rigor and relevance that MISD expects. Her team expressed their enthusiasm when it comes to work with Ms. Lau. She is a breath full of fresh air, and we couldn't be more blessed to have her at MES. So thank you so much.
I love teaching second grade because they're sweet and innocent, but they are independent. They keep me laughing every single day and learning about myself. I think making learning fun, I try to choose texts and activities that are fun to read or that are interesting. You know, they're little sponges, so if I act like I'm super into something, they're gonna be super into it. Building relationships, not just with me, but with each other is, I think, probably the most important thing to me every year. My favorite time of the day is from 7:45 to 8:30, and it's when they come in and they are eating breakfast, they're getting ready for the day, but this is my time where I really get to build those relationships. I ask them, you know, I know about their brothers and their sisters and mom, dad, and pets, and we just get to talk. It's literally my favorite part of the day. Like, I love it so much. It is such an honor. I was shocked when everyone came in the other day and told me. So teaching it's not for the faint of heart, but the reward that I get out of teaching, that most my coworkers get out of teaching, I mean, there's no feeling that could ever compare to that. It's just the best feeling in the world, knowing that you're making a difference.
Ms. Lau, congratulations. On behalf of the Magnolia Education Foundation, we have some wonderful gifts here for you for being Teacher of the Month. Nope. Nope. You're going to have all kinds of slides to take care of.
Okay, round of applause for Ms. Amy Lau, please.
We try not
The
to
fun
party
continues.
crash the photo. Yeah, so
Hey, Amy, listen, Amy. I just want you to hear that your community, your school board, superintendent, we're super proud of you, and you represent all the things that are best about the teaching profession and the things we want to accomplish in Magnolia ISD, and so we really appreciate that you've made this your teaching home, and we hope that it stays your teaching home, that you're a part here and you grow up professionally right here with us, and that you're going to have, your future is going to be very bright, and whatever that turns out to be in this profession. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for what you give to those kids. You could just see it in the video. Great things are happening in that classroom because of you, and we're proud of you. Thank you. Congratulations again.
all right, Gary.
I don't know exactly what all this up, but HEB has something up their sleeves here. And when Gary Hefner's got the microphone, good things happen. Okay, see, there you go. How about that?
There you go. That's
there you
very
go.
good.
All right.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stevens. Thank you, School Board, for the time tonight. You know, me and Kitty are honored to be just a small part of Magnolia ISD and the things that we can do and contribute back to our community. But there's oftentimes we have to ask an organization in the school to help us. And when we do that, we reach out, and I can tell you that there's one individual tonight that we're honoring, him and his group of talented students, because he's answered the call every single time, and his kids have come in and made a big difference, not only in our community but in our store. They've livened us up and just really done a great job for us. So, Mr. Medina, if you'll come forward. Mr. Bob Medina, our MHS band director. Yay, band. If you have never seen Mr. Medina interact with his students, you are missing out, first of all. He's right in the middle of everything that they do. If he's not playing with the band, he's dancing along with them. He's got the energy, and he teaches our kids so much. So, Mr. Medina, you have helped us out on multiple occasions by one phone call, just bringing your kids up. The drum line's been there multiple times. Your jazz band's been there multiple times. So, on behalf of HEB, Kitty, and myself, we want to present your band with a $500 check for your time. I think we have a video ready to go.
Yay, man.
That's awesome.
I just wish that guy could get excited about band.
Yeah, you need to get a little bit more excited about band.
Especially
and
jazz. Exactly.
And feel free to bring them to any board meeting you'd like. We've enjoyed getting to listen to you guys, so it's quite an honor. All right now, we would have gone through our basketball teams from West, but like I said, the students are not here. There would be a break, and so I'm going to give a pause. We're not going to take a full break. I am going to give a little bit of a pause here for anybody that wants to leave. I encourage you to stay. The rest of the meeting is more the business side of the meeting. I think we do have a couple of speakers tonight, so if you want to hear what's on people's hearts in our district, you can certainly stay and listen to that too. All right. I gave you a chance. Yeah, somebody needs to, here he comes. All right, Ms. Hinkleman, I have two. That's it. All right. So I have a couple of speakers, so I do need to read something before we do that. Participants must have turned in a request form 15 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Participation is limited to 3 minutes. Any complaint or charge brought against an employee by name, opposition for which resolution has not been sought in accordance with policy, should be pursued through the district's grievance policy. Please note, the Board of Trustees shall not deliberate, respond, or make decisions regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda that is posted. So with that, first we have Ms. Eckhart, who is a parent and a resident. Yes, that's fine if you want to give it to.
So I'm here to speak on the rules created by the school board officials regarding what is allowed at the ISD election polling sites. I found it quite curious that not one candidate or anyone calling on their behalf were given this list of rules, nor directed to a place on the school website to review them. They seem to change after the 2 weeks of early voting. I have included a copy of the rules that candidates were finally given the day of election taped to their extra signs that were pulled down. I think the school board can and should do a better job of making sure the rules are given and applied equally to all candidates. Please take note of the rules listed. I've given you a copy on the front. One of my volunteers was helping at Bear Branch Elementary and was told to take my tent decorations down. She was told only 2 campaign signs allowed. When we are told campaign signs, this is what we think of. I think everybody recognizes that as a campaign sign. When I arrived at the school, the principal, after being contacted by Christy Baker, who was campaigning for my opponent in the tent next to us, and told us we had to remove the decorative sign, see at the front of the tent on page 2. I was explained that these were, I explained to the principal that this seemed selective as my opponent had his barbecue trailer and very large signs over at the event center, another school property, see page 3. I even pulled up my 2 actual campaign signs, but that wasn't good enough as he wanted to count each of those letters as a whole sign. He eventually called the constable out on us. The constable, luckily, was instructed by his boss not to get involved in the situation. Christy Baker continued to take pictures and stick the principal on us, even taking a picture of my vehicle because it had the campaign signs on it, even though I was clearly parked more than 100 feet away from the entrance. But for some reason, the canvassing line signs were much further than the 100-foot line cited in election code. And in fact, after going back to measure, my car was actually parked 180 feet away. Election code states that it has to be a boundary of 100 feet outside you're allowed to canvass. So I'm not sure why the principal or whoever decided to arbitrarily move that line. Obviously, Christy Baker is free to support any candidate she wishes to, but she is not free to selectively decide which candidates must follow the school board rules as a member of the school board. And so I'm very disappointed that you were unable to fairly and arbitrarily administer the rules to every candidate the same way. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. All right, next we have Ms. Russell, who is a resident, not a parent.
Good evening. On August the 9th, the district sent out an email in regard to the International Baccalaureate program. The board administration informed parents and staff that the program does not promote global citizenship. I have a copy of the district's IB handbook. Within the first paragraph, it states the use of the IB's pedagogy is to, in a quote, effort to create worldly scholars and global citizens. You claim IB is not part of the United Nations. I have a document from the UN stating International Baccalaureate is a non-governmental agency of UNESCO. I have documentation of the district's check register sending Magnolia IB students to a UN mock trial. The IB teacher's PowerPoint presentation to these students stated is to familiarize the Magnolia High School community with role and practices of the United Nations, end quote. You claim it's not Marxist. The book titled The Fire Next Time was a required reading in an IB English class last year. The book is on Barnes & Noble's critical race theory list. Contents in the book, and I quote, "Furthermore, the white man knows his history, knows himself to be the devil," end quote. Quote, "The white man sure is the devil. He proves that by his own actions," end quote. The book repeatedly uses the N-word. IB promotes the UN Sustainable Development Goals, social justice, redistribution of wealth, equity, etc. This is Marxism 101. Magnolia ISD also promotes the idea that the district can create its own IB curriculum. Y'all filled out an application and submitted it when you got this program approved. You had to agree to abide by their guidelines, which are in here. Guideline 2.5 states the IB sets the curriculum and assessment requirements leading to the award of the IB diploma. My question to this board is how all 8 of you can sit there and not speak up against a lie that was sent out via email to staff and parents about this program. How can you sit there and still defend paying thousands, implementing an international program that does not value American ideals and American sovereignty and wants to turn our American kids into global citizens? What national sovereignty governs a global citizen? How can you sit there and defend paying association fees to the Texas IB who promoted communist Howard Zinn's resources for IB teachers? Dietrich Bonhoeffer says, "Silence in the face of evil is evil in itself. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act." And despite the effort by a couple of you to try to stifle my IB resolution, it was passed at over 100 precincts across the state. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Russell. All right, we will move on with business. First, we have the consent agenda. This portion of the agenda consists of items to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested. Does everybody get a chance to read all of those? All right. So if there isn't any questions, then I need a motion that the board approve consent agenda items A through I. Motion by Joe, seconded by Travis. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, Dr. Morse, looks like you're next up.
All right, thank you, sir. Excuse me. As the board is aware, over the past couple of years, we've built and adhered to a very aggressive bond defeasance plan where we've paid bonds off early and taken advantage of refunding opportunities and so forth. And so tonight, we're simply asking the board to approve an order to allow us to move forward with our current year's plan. So with the guidance of our trusty financial advisor, Mr. Lucas Janda, we've identified $10.5 million of existing principal to pay off early via focusing on 3 existing bond series. I can get into the nuts and bolts of those, but I think that might bore you tonight. So basically, what we're looking at based on current market conditions, conservative estimates, we'd be wiping off early $10.5 million worth of principal, and we anticipate a savings of approximately $568,000 associated with that in terms of interest. So what that means in current year net present value savings is approximately 5.4%, which is obviously substantial. The domino effect of that, similar to what we've talked about the past several years, is that we immediately wipe off early $11 million worth of existing debt, taking our voter-approved debt immediately, excuse me, from $174 million to $163 million. which means that we will have decreased it over 6% with this immediate payment. So that's something that dominoes into creating capacity for the next bond, and it's something that's obviously very meaningful. Excuse me. So if the board will remember, last year we did the same thing. We had more opportunity last year, and we saved approximately $29 million. So if you sort of put that into perspective for last year and this year combined, a new elementary school today costs about $40 million. So when you look at what we will have wiped off 2 years in a row, basically we've created capacity for the next elementary school on our existing debt, which we know is very low on a per student and per assessed valuation threshold. So anyhow, tonight I'm asking for y'all's approval to move forward with our FA. Obviously the increase in the federal funds rate will not be favorable for us, but it's, you know, savings is savings, and we still anticipate around 5%. So it's substantial and sort of adheres with our plan. Be happy to answer any questions.
So what you're saying is we're using the free market system to lower our debts and save ourselves some interest, not some Marxist system to use the government. I mean, it's actually, we're using our citizens' money.
This is true, Mr. Duncan. Yes, sir. It's simple finance. It's fiscal responsibility. We are lowering the debt burden for ourselves and for our taxpayers. And I guess doing so amid a 9-cent decrease in our overall tax rate coming into this year. So I think that's sort of the best of both worlds.
For the people who are concerned enough to stay here and listen to this, we certainly appreciate them getting full information.
Yes, sir.
Eric, will you explain, just so everybody understands, the two buckets of money and how that works as far as where the money comes from to pay for debt?
Absolutely.
Versus pay for salaries, pay for...
Absolutely, Mr. Adcox. Of course, you know, we have our M&O fund, which is maintenance and operations, which is for the day-to-day operations of the school district. Then we have our debt service fund, which is which is used to pay for our voter-approved bonded indebtedness for new facilities and so forth. And so if we remove the M&O component for a moment, we focus on the INS. And so the voter approval for those bonds allows the district to set a tax rate high enough to pay for the bonds, for the principal and interest associated with those bonds. And so the money associated with that, we receive very little from the state of Texas. Our current year payment's $25 million. And I think we received $300,000 from the state to help with that debt burden. So the vast majority of it is via the INS tax, and so we were able to levy an amount in spite of a 3-cent decrease on the INS side and a 6-cent decrease on the M&O side, for a total decrease of 9 pennies this year. Still levy enough to pay for the current year debt requirement, and also identify these savings opportunities.
One last question for you. Does this mean that the average taxpayer in our district, even though across the board seems like the appraisals went up, the average taxpayer in our district will actually pay less because we, the school board, lowered that rate and lowered the amount? Yes, sir.
And that's very specific in the calculations via the no new revenue tax rate that we talk about every year. And we were below that mark. And so, yes, sir, that is accurate. Yes, sir.
And I had a question. I know the board has been working very hard the last several years on paying off the voter-approved debt. And I'm trying to remember the number the last several years. I think it amounted to about $58 million in savings we have saved.
Yes, ma'am.
By doing that?
I don't remember the year, but if you go back probably a decade and look at the refundings that we focused on, the taking advantage of market conditions for callable bond purposes, and also removing debt early via our bond defeasance plan. Yes, ma'am. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 million. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, that's a significant amount of money that we've saved.
Well, it's substantial. Like I said,
by doing that.
Put things into perspective. I mean, again, we have a total current outstanding debt picture of $174 million, which seems like a large number, but it's not when you put it on a per student basis and compare us to our peers. But you look at this and this alone, I mean, that's decreasing our current debt burden by 6.4% with this move alone. So knowing the growth that's coming and knowing the new bonds that are going to be associated with that. I mean, this is it's a great move, and it's something that you guys have, taken the lead on and have, driven us as administration to focus on every year.
And all the debt that we have is all voter-approved bond debt.
It's not bad debt, if you will. It's voter-approved debt to pay for new facilities.
Okay, thank you.
And we have no debt on our M&O side. That's another point that a lot of districts unfortunately cannot say.
Because, not all school districts are in that situation.
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Or blessed to be in the situation that we're in.
Amen. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
One last question for you. Do we have the lowest debt per student in Montgomery County?
We do, yes, sir. Actually, probably in the entire Houston area from the peers that I've looked at that have any similarities with us at all in terms of our size, geographic location, and student enrollment growth and things of that nature. We were at before this right at $10,000 per student. And I don't know the average, but it's closer to about double that, closer to about $20,000. And some of our peers are up to $35,000 to $40,000 per student. So, and we also looked at it on a per assessed valuation model as well in terms of our property value. And we're the lowest in the area from that perspective as well. I think we're the third lowest in the Houston area for total tax rate purposes. Houston is a different animal, they're number one. And then Conroe and Willis are narrowly like 1 penny above us. So we're very, very close to being the lowest for tax rate purposes as well.
Anything else?
Well, I just think it's really important that we're doing that. I mean, we heard from the demographer, was that 2 months ago?
Yes,
17,000 homes going in the next few years in Magnolia ISD. And so to set ourselves up for a bond plus, or elementary school plus, and then the bond, I think is just really, I give a lot of credit to this board and you guys too for helping us along the way there, because it's really impressive, I think.
Well, thank you, Dr. Moffitt. And yeah, I mean, that was the best perspective I could put it into. I mean, we talk about the last 2 years. It's basically an elementary worth. So you remove that debt, you can plug it with new bonded indebtedness for new facilities.
And thank you for all you do, Eric.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And how many students did we pick up just this year?
We're up over 600 students. And so for perspective purposes, I mean, that's a normal elementary per year that we're anticipating growing. No, they won't all be at the elementary level, of course, but for perspective, that's what we're anticipating for the next 10 years.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I think everybody's figured out Magnolia's out here. It was a lot easier to move around when I moved out here.
We're in a good position to prepare for that from a debt position, for sure.
All right. So if there aren't any more questions, I need a motion that the board consider approval of an order by the Board of Trustees of Magnolia ISD authorizing the defeasance and redemption of certain outstanding bonds, approving and authorizing the execution of an escrow agreement, authorizing the engagement of a verification agent, and containing other provisions related thereto. Motion by Christie, seconded by Sonia, Dasha. All in favor? Motion carries. All right. I promised y'all it'd be short, so I just got to read one more thing and then you're out of here, okay? So the board will now recess to move into closed executive session for the purposes permitted by, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072, discussion of purchase, sale, exchange of value of real property, and pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel discussions / recommendations. We are adjourned.
Pretty good.
All right, the time is 8:32, and I need a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Motion by Christie, seconded by Joe. All in favor? Motion carries.